Hi, welcome to Kids Spot. My name's Jess Bond and I'm here with Mr. Ken Jacobs. We're going to have a little bit of an interview and get to ask you some questions, which is really good because I've worked with you before with Cricket Without Borders and stuff like that. So yeah, how are you?
Good, thank you. No,
Good to catch up.
and nice to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to have a chat to you.
Yeah, it's good. So obviously I know you're involved with a lot of cricket still. So how are you currently involved and how do you engage with cricket at the moment?
Well, with Cricket Without Borders, as you know, I'm involved with Cricket Without Borders. Have been since day one with Claire Cannon and then Noel Jones helped establish it in 2011, and I'm also chairman of a group called the Crusaders, that have been running almost 50 years now. I haven't been there 50 years. And I'm also do some work, I'm a patron of the Victorian Sub-District Cricket Association, and as I was mentioning just a little while ago, also do a little bit of work, volunteer work for Cricket Victoria. In between, try and watch a bit of cricket.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yes.
Can you share with us an overview of your journey with Cricket Victoria and the organisation's core missions during your tenure?
Well, it was a very different world in cricket, or different world all around, I suppose. But when I first started, my first day at Cricket Victoria was on the day of the announcement of World Series cricket, with Kerry Packer's World Series cricket. And I was employed initially as the Assistant Secretary of the Victorian Cricket Association. And my boss, David Richards, was the Secretary, as they called it then. David then moved on to, a little while later, moved on to Cricket Australia and then the ICC. But because of World Series cricket, which was quite a tumultuous period in cricket, David was heavily involved in all the negotiations with Kerry Packer and the Nine Network. And so he said to me very early on that, look, you're going to get thrown in the deep end a little bit because I'm going to be spending a lot of time on other issues. So that was sort of the starting point, and then that was in a time where the players were basically just part-time. They all had other jobs elsewhere. So I then moved from there through to a period of more semi-professionalism, and then when I, at the end of my career at Cricket Vic, it was certainly full-time professionalism. So it went through a whole range of change, both on and off the field too. When I first started, we had a staff of I think 9 people, of which 3 of them were part-time. So,
Oh wow.
and then when I finished, we had 60 full-time staff.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Massive growth over such a short space of
Absolutely.
time, isn't it?
Yes. Very significant growth.
Speaking of significant things, what were some of the most significant challenges you faced as CEO and how did you overcome them?
Well, I think probably the transition with players from virtually part-time to full-time was a significant challenge, because what was sort of required as part of that process was that there were more demands placed on the players by the coaches and so forth for training. And so moving players into a full-time scenario was difficult, more for the players obviously, but there was an adjustment required. But I suppose the most difficult period was really Cricket Victoria held the lease to the MCG, and they had a long-term lease with the Melbourne Cricket Club and the MCG Trust. And we went through a period where the relationship wasn't all that great, and we were negotiating a new agreement with them for a 15-year period. And we thought we had a deal done, and then various things happened, and then we had to go back. There was a new trust appointed, and my chairman and myself had to go back and start all over again. It was a very difficult time, and we, some people said, oh, they just veiled threats, but we, on a couple of occasions, looked at the possibility of taking all cricket from the MCG to, one was to Icon Park, where Carlton Football Club was based, and we were approached by the then President John Elliott to do so. And the other option was to go down to what was then Telstra Road, now Marvel Stadium. Look, obviously we didn't want to, we would have preferred, and we did in the end stay with the MCG, but it was a very difficult time. It was it really strained a lot of relationships with individuals. We previously had a good relationship with people, and it caused quite a bit of friction and a bit of personal friction too. So it was a matter of taking advice from the right people, and I hadn't really been used to that type of intense commercial negotiation that dealing with a lot of money and revenue for cricket in the state, and we were dealing with Cricket Australia as well, because the way things operated then was that Cricket Victoria held the lease, but we didn't control the program of matches. That was controlled by Cricket Australia. The MCC was saying we want a guaranteed number of days of international cricket played at the MCG. Now Cricket Victoria, we couldn't guarantee that, so we had to talk to Cricket Australia about all that. But things have changed a bit now with Cricket Australia have now taken over the head lease situation from Cricket Victoria. So I suppose that was a difficult moment. In a more practical sense, I suppose, with playing wise, the Victorian team went through a period of, when I first started, they were very successful and won back-to-back Sheffield Shields in 1978-79. Won the first McDonald's Cup, as it was then, a one-day competition. So in the 70s and early 80s, were quite successful, and then went through a period of lack of success, and really until 1990-91, when they won the Sheffield Shield again. But and then through another period of sort of a little bit of lack of success, even though we had some wonderful players playing for the state, Dean Jones, Merv Hughes, Brad Hodge, Shane Warne, of course, Tony Dodonay, Paul Rifle. So we had a really strong group of players, but and that some pretty strong personalities within the group, and that created a few little issues that with the board, with the coach, and other people. That was a period of difficulty, but again, it was a matter of sort of really being open and honest with the players, sitting down with them, just listening to their point of view, taking their views on board, and then trying to work our way through it. And then we made some changes, appointed some new coaches, and things started to move in the right direction. But it was a very interesting time.
Yeah, it would have been. Because you're not only managing the grounds, you're managing the people as well.
Absolutely. And look, probably the most difficult time that we had, or probably had for players, and I fully take on board their issue, that we were moving them into a fully professional career, but we didn't really have a home base as such, where they could go like they can now down to the City Power Centre. So we were using the MCG, we used the Junction Oval, we spent $250,000 on some practice wickets down there. We used Richmond Hunt Road for a period of time. So they were moving around to different venues, and their argument was, why can't we just have a stable base at home? Now the MCG was fine to an extent, but during the football season they couldn't get access to it. Or if you did get access, it was at very sort of unusual sort of times, which didn't really suit the players. So that was a difficult period, which we overcame to some extent with the indoor centre at the MCG, which Cricket Victoria and the MCC funded.
When was that built?
Well, that was built, would have been about 2005, I think.
Okay.
The Bill Laurie Indoor Centre. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Very good. How did Cricket Victoria work under your leadership to nurture young talent and endure a steady pipeline of skilled players for the future?
Well, again, it was a different era to what it is now, but there were different competitions in place for quite a period of time. There was one that was called the International Harvester Cup, which was for young country cricketers, and under 19 competitions. There was more schools cricket played that Cricket Victoria had some input into in the metropolitan area. Probably the most significant change came when the Victorian Institute of Sport was established, and cricket was invited to participate in that, and we did. And what the VIS said to us, though, that they don't want us to have sort of semi-established players. They wanted to have young players coming through, and that worked really well. So we had predominantly under-19 players involved in that. Dav Watmore was the head coach of the VIS for us, and that was quite a successful period. And it was also beneficial to us because the chief executive of the VIS at the time was a gentleman named Dr. Frank Pike, who had a strong background in sports science, but also with cricket. Dr. Frank Pike was the person basically responsible for helping Dennis Lee back onto his career after he injured his back in the early 70s and really got him going again. So he had quite a strong passion for cricket, which certainly helped us.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of, it's obviously a sport that strives for greater inclusivity, as we've seen across the media in recent years with many other sports as well. Can you speak to the initiatives that Cricket Victoria undertook to promote the diversity and inclusion within the sport?
Well, probably the most significant when I was there was to begin a period of the amalgamation with the Victorian Women's Cricket Association. It took a bit of time, and the full amalgamation occurred after I finished at Cricket Victoria. But we sat down with the VWCA over a period of years, not just weeks, to look at total amalgamation to ensure that the sport was more welcoming and embracing, and not just seen as a male style sport, and that eventually occurred, and really I think has helped the sport grow significantly. One of the other programs that we got involved with, particularly through the City of Melbourne, was Harmony Day, and I think today is Harmony Day actually here in Melbourne, and a lot of schools are celebrating it. But we got involved with that and the Lord Mayor at the time, Councillor John So, was really supportive of what we were trying to do, and we got involved with the Harmony Day program, and we started to reach out to more communities that we thought we should be doing, and it's gradually grown since then. And one of the communities that we already had quite a strong presence in, because of some of the people involved, was the Sri Lankan community in Melbourne, and we had primarily through the Paran Cricket Club, who had a number of Sri Lankan players, and Dav Watmore, who I mentioned earlier, is Sri Lankan, and that really helped us understand some of the issues in communities that we hadn't really had a strong footprint previously, and also understand, as I said, the discussions that took place with the Victorian Women's Cricket Association helped us get a better understanding of what was required to ensure that the sport was a sport for all and open to everyone and anyone who wanted to participate.
Very good. How has the integration of technology impacted the way cricket is played and managed at a state level?
Oh, well, I think it's made a significant change and benefit to the sport, and I think it obviously helps in the coaching area significantly, and particularly with individual sort of one-on-one coaching. I think that, the technology and what is happening is just really a godsend for players. But even in the promotion of the game, we see technology, particularly in 2020 cricket with the stumps and bails and the use of technology in that area, I think has really helped the promotion of the sport and made the sport become more popular. I think obviously across analysis of players' performances, where technology can be used is also extremely beneficial for players.
What do you think would be like the greatest technological asset that cricket's got today?
That is a good question. I think it's probably in the coaching area for players, where the benefits of technology can play to help players improve their overall game, and it's probably the biggest benefit. There's obviously benefits, I suppose, in the promotion of the game and the way the game might be played, as I said, particularly T20 cricket. But I think probably around coaching is the biggest benefit of the sport.
women's cricket has seen remarkable growth in recent years. What efforts were made under your leadership to support and accelerate this growth within Victoria? I know you just touched on this just now.
Oh, no, certainly. Well, certainly the integration with the Victorian Women's Cricket Association was a telling point. There was also subsequently the appointment of some development officers, and Melanie Jones was one of those. Melanie worked with Cricket Victoria when I was there for a little while as a development officer. To have women promoting the game, rather than having, even though they might be well intentioned and so forth, rather having men promoting the women's game, but also from a cricket point of view and from the administration's point of view, to get a better understanding of women's cricket, having people who play the game, to get a better understanding of the issues that were faced. And there was already quite a substantial amount of women's cricket being played. I can recall when the Box Hill Cricket Club, they were a bit of a pioneer in that area with women's cricket in establishing a women's section, and where Meg Lanning plays, and we learned quite a bit out of that as well. But it really was a matter of just being prepared to embrace the sport. And I have to be honest, that there were at times some people on the board of Cricket Victoria who, in those early days, weren't totally on song with it. They couldn't really see the broader benefit and longer term benefit. They were thinking more of the short term cost, what was going to cost us, whereas that was the wrong approach.
Looking towards the future, what do you believe are the key areas of focus for Cricket Victoria to continue to thrive on?
Well, I think the need to continue to embrace the game as a whole, in terms of making sure the game is and it remains available to everyone who wants to participate, irrespective of their background. And I think they're obviously doing that pretty well at the moment, and Cricket Australia is too. The need to continue to provide good facilities, not only for the elite players, but for the community players, I think is very important, because there's an enormous amount of competition for facilities, and facilities such as this. Other sports are continuing to grow as well, and there's been even in Victoria alone, there's been an enormous growth in the number of professional franchises in sport that are putting more and more pressure on cricket. So I think there's a need to continue to keep your eye on the ball, so to speak, as to what's happening in other sports, and be prepared to embrace successes from other sports, perhaps into cricket if they're appropriate, and continue to invest in the game, as I said, not just at the top level, but at the grassroots community level. And for Cricket Victoria, sort of off the field, Cricket Victoria is very financially stable, and they need to remain that way, but they also need to continue to look at perhaps new revenue streams that might drive some opportunities for them, and even new partnerships. And I know they've announced a couple in recent days. They've announced a new partnership with through a program in India, where they're going to be helping some coaching, do some coaching, and also some initiatives in schools in India. I think that's going back to 15, 20 years. Some people will say, well, what are you doing that for? What are you doing things in India for? Just concentrate on your own backyard. And that I've heard discussions along those lines a little bit around the partnership with the San Francisco Unicorns, and that people ask the question, well, what's this costing us? Don't forget your own backyard. And that's all relevant, but I think it's about getting the balance right in that respect.
Reflecting on your time with Cricket Victoria, what are you most proud of, and what advice would you give to the next generation of sports administrators?
Well, there were a few sort of highlights throughout cricket highlights that I remember very clearly, and apart from state situations, but in international environments, the 1992 World Cup, which was held in Australia, and again it was a completely different structure, but we hosted the final at the MCG, but Well, I suppose one of the most outstanding matches that took place was in Ballarat, and there was a match between England and Sri Lanka. I think England and Sri Lanka played up at Ballarat, and it was just an enormous success, and it was really a terrific example of what cricket can do as a sport to embrace the community. It was also the 1985 World Championship of Cricket, as it was called. That was when the lights at the MCG were first constructed and used, and Cricket Victoria contributed $1 million to the construction of those lights. That was a really great event. It was an initiative driven by Cricket Victoria by our former chairman, Bob Parrish, his thinking was around getting lights at the ground because he could see the need for cricket to look at that more broadly following the World Series cricket days. So there were a lot of other sort of highlights, but I think and there were a few lowlights. Unfortunately, with the passing of David Hooks and what took place there with his death was a really difficult time for everyone involved, for the players, the coaching staff and the other staff, because David was a full-time member of our staff, and that was very difficult. And we also went through a period, and his name was mentioned at the Cricket Victoria Awards last night. John Scholes was a former coach who passed away at a very young age. And so there were moments like that where, but it was where I suppose the off-field staff came together with the players and so forth. We were all under one banner and had the same thinking around those people because they were heavily involved in the game. Look, I think there are tremendous opportunities for young people now who want to get involved in sport, whether it be in sports administration, sports marketing, coaching, whatever. Far more opportunities there were than when I first started. And when I was probably lucky. I was just in the right place at the right time. I'd done an accounting degree, but I'd always wanted to try and get into sport if I could. And I worked at a firm of chartered accountants for 4 years, and then just at the time I was getting probably itchy feet, Cricket Victoria advertised for a job as assistant secretary, and I applied and I was successful, and it was just the right place at the right time. Now, I knew very little about sports administration at the time, and whereas now there are a number of courses around which I think are all good, and for my sins I went back 5 years ago and did a master's course in sports integrity and sports business, and I was talked into doing it by someone who's been in my value, and I thought, this is going to be a bit beyond me. I've been at university for a few years, but I did it, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot from it. Even now, I take sort of a lot of pride in what I learned out of that course. So I think the opportunities are there, not just in cricket, but in a range of sports. Some really good opportunities, and if you like working in sport, go for it.
That concludes all my questions. Thank you very much for your time today.
Pleasure. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you for watching Kids Sport. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe. Thank you.